If you have enough reserves and you start having trouble with your properties, you're going to make it through. The downside of real estate is just, I tried the 9-to-5 world. I felt like a misfit.
I'd rather have a smaller portfolio that allows me the flexibility, because that is really what's
I kind of came to the conclusion after trying multiple jobs and just being like, I just don't feel like this is my thing, that I probably need to start my own business. When I go to the gym, I've had these old retired guys. They're like, what do you do? Are you a firefighter? And I'm like, no.
Whether people hate it or love it or whatever, it's effective.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm really excited today. We have a special guest. He's got a really cool story. He's got some awesome properties, and I'm excited to have Josiah Smelser here. Thank you so much for getting on the podcast.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. Glad we got to do this, and look forward to chatting real estate with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. I got introduced to Josiah. I was listening to Brandon Turner's podcast. He's got an awesome podcast called Better Life. I was listening to that, and Josiah's episode came on, and it was just really cool. So I reached out to him, was like, hey, would you want to do our podcast? And he agreed to it. So here we are. But for people who don't know, who you are, give us a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah. So I currently live in North Alabama. I grew up in North Alabama. I went to college in Arkansas, went to grad school at UNC in Raleigh, North Carolina, and your neck of the woods up there. And then since after, in between there, I lived in Texas. That's where I really got into, that's where I really started building my real estate portfolio, where I got into real estate. I got licensed as a real estate agent, but I first got licensed as an appraiser. And so I kind of have a little bit of everything going on in real estate. I still have my own appraisal business. I still have my own brokerage, and the lion's share of my income comes from my investment properties. So I'm married, got 3 kids, ages ranging from 7 to 11 years old. So we're having a lot of fun with just doing family stuff. And yeah, that's kind of the high level scoop on what's going on with me.
That's awesome. So your kids how far apart are they if it's 7 to 11? There's one right in between, I guess.
I've got an 11-year-old, 9-year-old, and 7-year-old. They're right there together. We could try to get it all knocked out, stair step there. So
yeah, I'm the same boat. I have a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and 6-month-old.
Yeah, it's you're still in with the 6-month-old, you're still in the not getting sleep for several years phase.
Yep. So yeah. He last night he barely slept. The night before he barely slept. He's normally pretty good, but the last couple of days he's been teething, so we haven't been getting a lot of sleep. But it's awesome to have them so close, and I'm excited for that age where they're like 7 to 11, and I imagine that's a lot of fun.
It is. It's a blast, and each phase has got its own challenges and its own benefits and stuff. But having kids is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's also one of the hardest things, but that's the kind of stuff that makes your life worthwhile. So it's been a blessing.
I'm the single guy here. I don't have any kids. I just get all the cool Snapchat videos from Graham of what they're doing, and I know his kids pretty well, and just it's fun to watch them grow up too. So even from the outside.
I mean, I had a lot when I was single. I mean, I was doing road trips all the time, going to concerts and hike the Appalachian Trail.
That's sick.
Being single is awesome. Like, take advantage of it while you have it. One day, I mean, I don't know if you want to get married, but maybe one day you'll be married and you'll be like, oh, I was glad I didn't just sit at home and do nothing while I was single, So
definitely not. And then it's a great time to grow and learn too. So I'm like 100%. Going all in and taking advantage of that time too. So yeah, it's been cool. It's fun. I'm happy with the life.
It's a good time when you're single and you don't have a wife and kids at home. You can make mistakes. And still, it's not that you're not really doing much to your family with it. It's just you. So it's a good time to take chances, with
100%
business startups and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I got my glove business that I've started up. I started up, when I got out of college and through the military. I had to take a little bit of time off of it, but now I'm really trying to push it. I got an Tractor Supply a few months ago.
Cool.
I'm on Amazon now. So I'm really trying to push that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
that's
taking
awesome,
the extra time to push that. Yeah. Plus, we got Airbnbs, and so that's probably one of the first questions I have is, can you talk a little bit about your Airbnb portfolio and where they're at and how you kind of balance that and manage that?
Yeah. So I'll tell I can go into depth on how we got all this stuff, or I can give you the high level. The high level is I'd use the BRRRR strategy to buy distressed single family rentals in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I picked Fort Worth in particular because I used to live in Fort Worth. I lived there for 5 years. I felt when I looked at all the markets that I was open to investing in, I was really considering. When we started, we were living in the Little Rock, Arkansas area, and we could find, this was 2017. And it's funny because, everybody knows what's happened with the real estate market since then. But back then, everyone was telling us that the market was overheated and that it wasn't a good time to buy. I'm serious. I heard that from everybody. And I was like, I'm doing it anyway because I feel like this is the best way for me to reach financial independence. And so we got our first properties in Little Rock. And then we quickly realized like we can do the BRRRR strategy and get all of our capital back after the renovation and all that. But how much are these going to appreciate yearly? Because we were like, we don't just want to have 100 of these things because it's a lot of work keeping up with all the 100 single family properties. And so we were like, okay, we probably need to shift our strategy a little bit and get into a market where we've got cash flow and appreciation. And so we identified some markets we liked. One of them was Nashville. But the price point in Nashville, even in 2017, was already kind of too high. We couldn't get the cash flow we needed. And then we liked Huntsville, Alabama, and we couldn't find the volume of properties we needed there. And then we looked at Fort Worth, Texas, and there was plenty of volume on deals, and we could get them at the price point we needed. And we felt like the appreciation was going to do really well. And that's been one, like we were blessed because that's been one of the top performing, Dallas Fort Worth's been one of the top performing markets over the last 5 and 10 years. So we're really happy with how that worked out. But we just did the BRRRR strategy over and over, took our capital, bought distressed deals, got them fixed up, and then would get them rented out. We held them for several years. In 2021, we sold everything when the market went crazy. We just sold the top on the residential, and because we wanted better cash flow. And so we did 1031 exchanges. We would sell like 3 single families at a time, and that would give us, 200 to 400,000 in equity, and then we would take that and go buy a vacation rental cabin in the Smokies. And so we moved all of our portfolio from single families in the Fort Worth, Texas area to vacation rental cabins in the Smokies. And that made our cash flow explode. So, and it also unlocked that equity because we had created a lot of equity there. And I talked about this in that episode with Brandon, but we were looking at our return on equity, and it's like, we had multiplied our initial equity from doing the BRRRR strategy, but we had gone from like 200,000 when we started to like $4 million in equity. And we were looking at what we're making on that, and it was silly. It was really low. It was like 2% or something. So we're like, man, if we move this over into vacation rentals, it's gonna explode that. And so it took it from like 10x our return on our portfolio. So that created a lot of income for us, and that's what's created financial independence for my family. And so, some people say you can't reach financial independence through single families. And I mean, that's what we did, but we had to sell the single families and move it into a higher performing asset. And, these are classified as commercial on the depreciation schedule. So depreciated on 39-year schedule, but they're like little mini hotels. Like some of these are 12 bedroom, 3-story, some of them sleep 55 people. So they're,
holy cow.
Some of these are pretty large. So we own from
That's crazy.
4-bedroom cabins all the way up to 12, and we have 6 of them.
Wow. That's so cool. Yeah, I remember that was one of the big things that caught my attention to click on that episode. I can't remember the title exactly, but it was like, he makes $600,000 a year from cabins. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, like back in 2020, I had no properties. I had just been in real estate brokerage for like 2 years, I think. And, was barely making any money. But I really wanted to buy properties. And I found, it's funny. I found, what's his name? Rob Abasolo. Yeah. You've probably dealt with him, but I found his YouTube channel like well before he had just started it, well before, he was on Bigger Pockets. And I listened to all this stuff about Airbnb, and I was like, man, I really want to do Airbnb. That sounds so cool. And then I don't remember when it blew up and everybody started talking about it. I feel like it was honestly when he became the co-host, and he started relating everything and every guest to like, oh, well, my Airbnb stuff. And then all of a sudden everybody you talk to wants to be an Airbnb. So yeah, that's actually one of the first properties. That's how me and Jesse became, better and better friends. We bought a duplex in Durham. Cool. And it's crazy because it's a 1,200 square foot duplex. It's 600 square feet each side. Traditionally we would probably rent for maybe $1,200 to $1,300 per side, but we net about that much per side with it just being a duplex. So like you're saying, the cash flow in these things are crazy. And that's a discussion that me and Jesse have pretty much daily is should we go after the commercial real estate stuff and just focus on that, or should we do commercial real estate and then also bring in some Airbnbs. So I'm curious what
Yeah.
you think, because a lot of people are saying Airbnbs oversaturated and yada yada. But
Yeah.
I'm curious your opinion on that now. Like the current condition of the market, do you think it's still worth people trying to find vacation rentals?
Yeah, I'll shoot you straight on all of it. There's definitely benefits to it, and there's definitely some headwinds on it as well. Like you said, this asset class got really hyped up, and so the price point went way up. And the price point on all real estate went up pretty much, unless you're in just a horrendous market. Everything went up. So even single family houses, commercial assets. I mean, I was looking at apartments forever, and I had multiple apartments under contract. And it's like the ROI was just not great. And it's like everybody was fighting over these things. And it's like everything was getting bid up. And you were having to be more and more, you were having to take on so much more risk with the earnest money going hard and being non-refundable and all this. It's like a massive amount of money. And it's like when you're trying to get your first deal, you don't want to lose $100K on your earnest money. So it was just like, I was looking at the returns and I'm like, wow, so I got to raise all this money and have the risk of, the earnest money side of it. And just how difficult it was to get those assets closed. And then I was looking at my vacation rentals and in my cabins, and I'm like, I had one, and I don't want you to think this is how they all are, because they're not, but I had my first one I bought was giving me over 100% cash on cash return year one. So I'd put in like 105,000 in year one. I made 120 on it. And so I'm like, so I could, and I'm like, okay, so let's say I get 20% on the cabins versus 8% on an apartment complex. I'm like, I don't have all the investors. I don't have to go raise the money. And then I don't have the earnest money on the risk on that side and all the other stuff that goes into it, all the due diligence costs and all that. Over here, I can get this deal by myself. So, I can, it like simplifies things. I'm not beholden to somebody that I've raised money from. And then the return's better, and I get all the depreciation benefit myself, which was a big asset to this whole thing, big selling point. So, and I felt like I could get the deals. I felt like on the apartment side, I really wanted an apartment complex because of the scale of it. Like that's where I think commercial, like a traditional commercial asset, like an apartment complex, self-storage, something like that. That's where, to me, there's a bigger benefit as opposed to like vacation rentals. It's just the ability to scale quicker, right? And so if you're trying to purchase something for 20 million bucks, you're gonna have to buy a really big cabin portfolio, or you could just go buy one apartment complex, right? So to me, that's where the benefit on commercial comes in. But if you're trying to get from like single family into big commercial stuff, vacation rentals aren't a bad option as like a stair step to that. So that's kind of my 2 cents. So can you still make good money on these? Absolutely, you can. Has it got more challenging? Yes, because the price point's gone up and the interest rates have gone way up and the insurance costs have gone up and the cost to repairs have gone up and the rents really haven't gone up that much. So the margins are being squeezed on it. But there's a lot of sellers right now that are distressed because they bought theirs on they had a renewable adjustable rate on their deal and it adjusted upward, and then their insurance costs went up. And then they've had repair issues and they're just not making, maybe they're making about the same as they made last year, but since they didn't have a lot of margin and maybe they're not self-managing and their management's not the greatest and they're cash flow negative on their deals. And so they're trying to dump their properties. There's no buyers. So there's some discounted stuff for sale right now out there. But there's a lot of junk as well. That's just like, do you want to go into that with a higher interest rate? It doesn't have good rental history. And like, do you feel confident you can go in there and kind of turn that thing around? But there's some deals to be had for sure for those that have the stomach for it,
Yeah. When you're talking about these deals particularly, I know you're a licensed broker. And so are you talking about mostly in the Smokies where you bought, or are you talking about everywhere?
I'm talking about in the Smokies. Now, it's going to depend on your market, right? Like they've made these things, they pretty much made these things illegal in New York, right? They're not allowing people to do them at all. I know Dallas cracked down on them. So I think there's also some risk, if you're considering going into this and you're like brand new to the whole thing, I would really do some due diligence on what market you're looking at getting into, because you don't want to go buy a property that doesn't cash flow as a single family rental and buy a house that will only cash flow as an Airbnb. And then they crack down on it and you can't rent it as an Airbnb anymore. And then you're cash flow negative in a rental that you got to sell. and it's maybe not a good time to sell something. So I would cover your bases on that extensively before you dive in. But you guys are doing it in Durham, and it's working out well for you. There's areas where you can do this and you don't have any trouble. So I would just say do a lot of due diligence, and there's still opportunity in it for sure. I mean, our stuff's still doing great. So, but it has gotten more challenging over the last year to run these things because of all the costs going up. As you know, when interest rates skyrocket on a commercial asset, the value goes down because that's squeezing the bottom line, the NOI, and so your value goes down when your NOI goes down at the same cap rate. So so temporarily the values have dipped a little bit on these things. So we don't want to sell ours right now because I feel like 2 years ago we could have made a windfall if we had sold them. Now values have gone down some, so we're gonna let the rates go back down and let the values go back up before we consider selling and moving any money again.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys buying anything else right now, or are you just kind of sitting tight?
I bought one seller financing deal that was 0 down. I literally just assumed the guy's payment, and that's the only thing I bought since rates went way up. So I just, to me right now, cash is king. If you have enough reserves and you start having trouble with your properties, you're going to make it through. And like, to me, like this surviving this kind of stuff is really going to put you way ahead when the market turns back and you've got capital and things are less risky and the rates have gone down. Because, this stuff doesn't happen instantaneously. There's a lot of people struggling right now with their properties that need to sell them, and they're under pressure from their lender, and they're just looking for a buyer. And so, rates have already gotten cut, but they're supposed to continue to get cut through summer 2026. So summer 2025, I mean, there's people still, I think the average person doesn't have nearly as much money as they did a year or two ago. So I think even over the next year, there's going to be a lot of deals from distressed sellers that are there to buy, that if you've got capital sitting there on the sidelines and you're patient, when rates go down, it's going to be a really sweet time to get a good deal,
That's great insight. Yeah. I was just going to say, it's interesting that you mentioned that you bought a seller finance deal, Airbnb. I've been seeing an uptick. I've kind of follow a little bit one of the Pace Mortgage groups, not like the paid one, but the other one. And I've seen an uptick in those deals being available. So it's interesting that you bring that up. I was going to ask, like, when you see those deals and it's like, it's a distress, like, how do you define the difference between, okay, this is just a distressed seller versus, all right, his Airbnb is not performing and he's at just a really bad cost basis. So if I assume this, I'm going to be in the same situation. Like, how do you avoid that?
Yeah, you got to be really careful. I mean, that's the double-edged sword of the seller financing thing. Like, it's great to take control of a property with no money down, but are you taking on a liability that's going to like bleed you? So you got to really know your numbers on the front end. And on this deal, because we already own a bunch of cabins up there and I am a broker up there, I can look at the values, and then I can look at, our rent comps from our other properties and know kind of generally what it's going to do on the rent side, which is really the biggest X factor. Like, it's much easier to pull sales comps than it is to really get a good handle around the rents, because even with cabins, like, you could have 2 cabins in the same development and one of them's renting better than another one consistently. And you're like, why? Well, one of them has a much better view. There's something about the layout, the way it was built, that people like better. And they just, they tell all their friends and they want to rebook it and all that. So there's little nuances to these that you really got to look at. And if you're not experienced with it, you could easily miss. So I would definitely say be very careful on just assuming somebody's note just because they want to do seller financing, because you could end up, I mean, they're obviously wanting to do that for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And if they're making
Exactly.
a windfall on their property, they're probably not wanting to do it at 0% to you. So they're distressed. And like, why are they distressed? Is it something with their family, or is it the property? They can't get the property to rent. And, you could look into why. Is it just kind of like a lazy thing, or is it they're doing literally everything within their power? They've tried everything, and there's something about the property itself that's, causing it not to rent for as much as they were projecting originally. And that could be a big problem if you assume that. So
Yeah.
the upside, I mean, the biggest asset to me when I assume this thing is I got to do the depreciation on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I get to immediately, even though I didn't put a penny into this, it's going to save me, I think it saved me like 40 grand on my taxes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just from that alone. And then I have the cash flow profit as well. And so, it's like, wow. I mean, you talk about a good return on a high cash on cash return. If you're not putting any money into it and you save 40K on your taxes, it's like pretty good.
That's awesome. So a question I'd have is me and Jesse, we have I wouldn't say we're necessarily super experienced Airbnb operators, but we have had this duplex for 2 years. We're running 2 units. Jesse's running another unit for somebody else in Fayetteville. And I feel like we've kind of gotten it dialed, at least this property. We've got the systems in place. We've got the cleaning and we've got everything. So I'm wondering, kind of our goal is to get to where you're at with financial freedom. So that's why we were looking, and we're in a commercial real estate firm. So we're looking at commercial real estate deals. We're seeing deals that cash flow a lot, but there's a lot of risk involved with those as well. And we definitely want to buy those. But the Airbnb is definitely another angle that can support the cash flow. So I'm wondering, do you think me and Jesse, for example, could go in and find something in the Smokies that could, still be I know you said you can still find a good deal, but just, do you think it would be a good idea? Or at least a good idea for cash flow? Cause that's kind of what we're after right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's still there. Our up until I want to say probably August, we pulled our numbers at the end of August and compared them to August 2023 over that last year. So in other words, we pulled our trailing 12 and then we compared it to the 12 months before that, and we were actually up on our revenue, which I was shocked by. We were up. It was like the properties themselves, I want to say the gross revenue on the portfolio is like 1.2 million. Now that's the top line. That's not the bottom line. But, we were it was like 30 grand ahead of the prior 12 months, which, considering what's going on in the economy and how I feel pretty much when I talk to people I know, they tell me they have less money in savings and they have less money just in general, because the costs have gone through the roof on everything. So we were kind of anticipating a slowdown on the rents, but people are still vacationing up there. So, to me, that's your answer is if people are still spending money vacationing up there and you can get in at the right price point and you just run your numbers and cover your numbers on the front end, then yeah, it's absolutely a good place to go. And I'm hoping that regardless of who wins the election, I'm hoping that they bring back the bonus depreciation, which they have almost done multiple times, but it somehow it always gets kicked down the road. And if they would do that, that would really stimulate the commercial asset space with people wanting to purchase and move money around.
Yeah, for sure. I sold a property 2 weeks ago. First property I ever bought. It's a single family house, and made a good profit on it. Fortunately, I was very blessed because of the timing. We bought it in 2021, which was after COVID, but it still jumped in value significantly. So I was able to kind of capitalize on that. It's at investor's title right now. So I'm trying to do a 1031. We've got another property under contract. It's an 18,000 square foot warehouse, and we're looking for a tenant. But the problem is our DD ends in about 3 weeks, and we've had a lot of action with tenants, but nobody signed anything yet. And in that scenario, it's one 18,000 square foot building. You're looking for a tenant. It's good. The cash flow is phenomenal, almost equivalent. We're getting it in seller finance, so it'd be close to maybe not close to what an Airbnb would be, but it's very good cash flow. And so it's just always interesting looking at something like, do I roll this into a warehouse where we have one single tenant that's producing cash flow, or do I roll it into an Airbnb somewhere like in the Smoky Mountains where you're not going to be dealing with vacancy for months at a time, or if somebody leaves, then you're stuck holding a huge payment, because typically with Airbnb, people are renting by the night, so it might be vacant for a couple of days, but then it's filling in. So that's interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely viable. I think it, just like anything else. Even if you do self-storage, you want to go in and do your due diligence and learn the asset class, learn how it works, learn the all the different expenses that are unique to that asset class. With Airbnb and especially vacation rental cabins, the cleaning is by far the biggest expense for us. It's the cleaning. So if you got the cleaning part dialed in, then that's going to help you a ton. And then there's the management, and we self-manage. So we did all our stuff in-house because we wanted to manage it, first of all, kind of like y'all are doing yours. We wanted to make sure that it was being done properly and being really taken care of well. And once we learned that, and we felt like we were outperforming the average property up there, the average cabin, we were like, why would we hand this off to a third-party management company and then pay them a good bit of the profit? Basically, it's going to hit our bottom line. And there, in a lot of the properties we were buying from these, and there were investors who had hired these third-party management companies, and the asset was just way underperforming. And we're like, it's consistently these same management companies that have these. And it was scary at first, because we're like, wow, I feel like this should be doing $30,000 a bedroom per year, and it's doing 18, and it's like, wow, it looks like there's massive opportunity in this, but are we just like way off on our numbers, or is this actually a huge like value add opportunity from just managing it well? So yeah, I mean, you can definitely still do cabins in the Smokies and still make a good bit of money on it.
I think to expand on Graham's question too is like we kind of want to do both, and
yeah,
we're trying to like figure out that self-management. We're trying to figure out that team, what that looks like.
Yeah.
If we were to hire somebody else out, do we hire out, or what do we do? Like, we're still trying to figure out the framework, if you will, of that, and kind of trying to balance commercial and Airbnb. Do you think that's too much for us to handle?
So on the storage, I have no experience with storage, so I don't want to speak for that. But on the Airbnb side, I will say this: having self-managed it ever since we had these, and we have 58 bedrooms now. So I think in bedrooms on the cabins, because when you say I've got 3 cabins, well, it sounds like, well, 3 cabins, that's not very much. Well, it depends on whether they're 12 bedroom or 1 bedroom. So it could literally be different. 36 times the size of a 1 bedroom, 3 1 bedrooms. So it's like, okay, 12 times the size, I guess. So on the management side, it's running a hospitality business, as with your current properties. But it's like when you got 1 property, it's very manageable. But when you get, when you've got 6 families staying in 1 property at the same time, all it takes is like 1 or 2 people in that group to be the kind of person that's like high maintenance with what their questions and what they need. And when they get there, they're, I found a hair on the floor. And, literally anything you could possibly think of, we've heard from these folks.
Where's the teapot at?
Yeah. Or, we thought y'all would have nicer cookie sheets, and we're like, okay, well, sorry to disappoint. Be
glad you have one.
Yeah. One time, this is hilarious. Well, it's not, it's really, really weird. It's really weird. It's hilarious how strange it is. I'll put it that way. One time we had this group in a cabin, and we just didn't hear much from these people. Okay. And then they leave, and my cleaner sends me this picture, and it's a dead cat in the parking lot of our cabin. And it's in the road of the cabin, leaving our cabin. And it's got all these like flowers and bouquets, all these like flower arrangements all around this cat. And it's like in all these rocks. And we're like, what in the world just happened here? Like, did they find this cat dead? Did they kill this thing? Like, what in the world? Like, and it's just bizarre stuff like that happens at your cabins. And you're like, what is going on? Like, you don't know the people staying there. And we still are like, what the heck happened? Like, do we need to call somebody about this? Or like, what is this? Or did they just like, did somebody's cat die and they're just kind of like doing a little ceremony for it or what? But we still are like, what the heck was that? Anyway, it's a hospitality business is the point. And you're dealing with all types of people. You got to have thick skin. There's a lot of people that will literally rent your property with the strategy to complain enough to get all their money back and get a free vacation. But we found that self-managing, and my point to all that, long story short, by self-managing, you get to a point where you've literally got so many properties and so many messages and stuff going around that you need help. And so what we ended up doing is hiring somebody in-house, but you only do that when you get to the point where the cash flow allows it, right? So you want to be profitable enough that you could pay somebody, $50K and they can handle it for you. And like we did it when we were like, okay, the business is bringing in 1.2 million. We pay them X, and that's like 3% of our gross income. Whereas you hire a management company, some of these guys are charging 30%.
That's crazy.
30%. And so we're like, we're at 3%. Some of these owners are paying 30% to these management companies. Like, it's no wonder they can't run a profitable business. It's all their profits going out the door in management costs.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's so cool. So, I mean, just kind of summing up everything, Airbnb is definitely an alternative to, our audience of commercial real estate, people trying to get in, trying to achieve financial freedom. Airbnb, like I've always thought and kind of known, it's like, it's a viable strategy that can get you there probably faster. I mean, commercial real estate, there's a big barrier to entry, and not saying there's not a barrier to entry to Airbnb, but it's definitely different. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool.
Hey, I want to add this too. I am selectively taking clients, and you reached out a while back and I was completely slammed. My wife was dealing with some stuff with health, and I'd be happy to help you, by the way. now I actually have the capacity, but I'm selectively working with people on this. So I am a licensed broker up there. So if anyone's listening to this and you want help finding something, reach out. If I can help you and I have the capacity to, I'd be happy to. So just food for thought on that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely plug your info for sure.
100%.
But I guess what I was going to segue into is, I was talking to you a little bit and you said you do have a commercial real estate property as well. You said you bought one. So definitely want to talk about that. So tell us a little bit about that property and I guess where it's at, what kind of asset, everything.
Yeah. So the cabins are, they're classified as commercial for depreciation purposes, but they're kind of like a little hybrid asset because they're not single family houses. They're not what you think of when you think commercial, like a self-storage or apartment, but they're kind of like little mini hotels. But we have one property that is one parcel and it's got 7 different commercial units on it that are detached, and they're like, it's got 3 cabins and 4 little efficiency houses, and then it's got like a kind of like a little covered hangout area where there's like, it'd be kind of like a place for people to like barbecue and throw a party and stuff. And it's like, we're thinking about actually converting that into like a barn dominium type thing, but it's actually a building. It's got an office in it with, like vending machines and that kind of stuff for people to, so sometimes people will rent this whole thing out, this whole, we actually have it listed. There's master listings on Airbnb and then we have them listed separately, but you can rent the whole thing out. And then you've got that area to like cook out and hang out, watch football and whatever. So, but that asset is zoned commercial and our loan on it is a commercial loan and it is a commercial asset, but we still do Airbnb on all of that as well.
It's like a boutique hotel.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. And it's really an interesting one because I mean, it's located right next to the lake. And it's in Alabama. And so it's pretty much fishermen that rent this thing. And they just they and all their buddies, they rent out there. They got a place to put their boat in right there, and it's like the perfect place for bachelors to go or guys that are just getting away with their buddies to go fishing. So it's not the same thing as those cabins in the Smokies. The cabins in the Smokies are like really nice place, like you take your wife and kids and have a blast kind of thing. These cabins on the lake are like, probably don't want to take your wife and kids. So we had a lady stay out there and she sent us this long email about all the things that need to be upgraded and decorations that need to be upgraded and stuff. For like, this is like $85 a night, probably not going to do all that.
That's funny. So did that one come after all the cabins in the Smokies or?
Yes, it did. We had purchased all these cabins in the Smokies and we had our systems built out. And then this deal came across our desk and we were like, wow, because I was living in Huntsville at the time. This was only like 30 minutes away. And we love fishing up there as well. And so we went and looked at this property and we're like doing the numbers on it. We're like, wow, the numbers are really jumping off the page on the cash flow on this. And so we went out there and the lady that owned it didn't have any records for us. It was all kept on loose leaf paper and she was like writing everything down with a pencil. And she hands us this notebook with just a bunch of chicken scratch in it. We're like, so we had to kind of like try to figure out what comps would be. And she wasn't doing Airbnb. Crazy. I mean, she was just renting it with a website. And it's so bizarre how there's a lot of people that do that. Like there's a lot of people who have an asset that would be perfect for Airbnb that they don't even have it on there because they, for some reason, feel like that they don't want to deal with it or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, it's going to help your cash flow a ton. And when you try to sell it, if you could show much higher cash flow, exponentially higher cash flow, it's going to help your resale value, So yeah. It's a different asset, but it's one of the challenges has been, when you have your economies of scale advantages in one market, and that'd be another like tip I would give people listening in that are thinking about going into vacation rentals, Airbnb stuff. There's a significant advantage to having a lot of your properties in a similar area, so you don't have to recreate the wheel on your management, on your maintenance, on your cleaning crew, all that. Because, if you don't have a good maintenance person, that's obviously a big problem. If you don't have good cleaning, you're toast on Airbnb. So getting the cleaners nailed down, the maintenance nailed down, and then you really have to know comps on what the things are going to bring in revenue wise. And you have to know whether when you're looking at deals, if you don't know a market, it's hard to tell what's a good deal and what's not a good deal. And that can get you in trouble if you pull the trigger on something that it's not going to cash flow like you thought, and then your cash flow negative. And then it's hard to sell because people are going to look at your rents and they're like, wow, I can't make this cash flow. And you get stuck with a deal. So yeah, so I would say, like, we reflect on that and we're like, this property cash flows well, but we probably could have gotten a similar cash flow on another cabin up there. And we had the economies of scale advantages in the Smokies. So in hindsight, we probably wouldn't go back. If we went back to that time, we probably wouldn't go back and rebuy it, but it's doing well for us. It's just extra management headache. So
Gotcha. I was curious, you keep bringing up the depreciation scale for those that don't really understand it. And I kind of have a minimal understanding of it, kind of talk through the benefits of it and like what that will do for you, depreciating your assets.
Yeah. I mean, definitely talk to your CPA about this and make sure you're talking to a CPA that's knowledgeable on real estate and the depreciation benefits to real estate, because some CPAs that don't specialize in rental properties and that kind of thing, I found some CPAs that don't really know a lot about this, and they'll advise people to not do it based on the fact that they can't get the depreciation when in fact they could. So with vacation rentals, if you're self-managing, and there's some nuances to it, so go look it up and educate yourself on it. Don't do it just based on what I'm saying. But if you are self-managing and you are spending more time on that property than anyone else, you don't have another property manager and you're kind of running point on that thing. You are, especially if you're a real estate professional, which I am, since I'm a broker or appraiser, all I do is real estate. So it's easy for me to qualify, but you can even qualify if you're not a real estate professional, if you're spending more time on the property and meet the requirements there, but go look that up. But if you do that, then you can take the accelerated depreciation. And the reason that's a big deal is, especially, we had a 100% accelerated depreciation in place for a while. And so, it would allow you to take a massive chunk of that depreciation in year one. And so some of these cabins that we bought, like some of these cabins were, one of our cabins was like $2.2 million. And so, we got hundreds of thousands of dollars of depreciation year one. Well, that property didn't profit that much. And so that depreciation just flows through to my income on my tax return and covers over all of it with money left over. So it takes my tax basis down to zero. So you end up saving a lot in taxes. Now, the downside to it is when you use up all your depreciation, you go to sell it, you have recapture. So the recapture means when you sell it, they're going to take the depreciated basis for your property when you sell it. A lot of, commercial investors that have been doing this a while know all this, but people who are new might not. But just know that when you use up that depreciation, your basis is going to be lower. So if you sold it and don't do a 1031, you're going to have to pay tax on the depreciated basis. So that's why so many investors like doing 1031s, So, but yeah, the depreciation benefit is huge, and especially in vacation rentals, as compared to single families. You can still accelerate depreciation on a single family, but when we sold those houses and moved into the vacation rental space, like the assets were so much bigger and they cost more. It gave us a lot bigger depreciation basis, and that really provided a lot of tax benefits for us.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's something we're looking at now, because we bought that warehouse about a month ago. It's 6,000 square foot warehouse we actually closed on. So we're looking at potentially doing cost segregation or just taking the standard depreciation route. But something else we really wanted to talk to you about was personal branding, because obviously you're on social media, you're on Brandon Turner's podcast. I know you had Ryan Pineda either on your podcast or you were on his podcast. But I'm curious, like, one, I guess, would be, what made you decide to go after kind of starting a personal brand? And then two, another question is, like, how did you get connected with these people like Brandon Turner or Ryan Pineda?
It's a good question. So I tried the 9-to-5 world. I always just felt like a misfit. So I got my MBA, and when you get your MBA, you're kind of like cut out for corporate America and like finance or something like that. So I tried that stuff, but I just felt like sitting in a cubicle just made me kind of crazy, And so I kind of came to the conclusion after trying multiple jobs and just being like, I just don't feel like this is my thing, that I probably needed to start my own business. And to me, if you're going to start your own business, social media is free advertising. So on top of that, I like connecting with people. I'm a people person. And when I run a business out of my home right now intentionally. Like, I have not wanted to hire a bunch of employees and be responsible for that. And so I've intentionally kept it small and lean, because I want, the number one thing to me is not money, it's flexibility. I want flexibility, like to do this right now. Like when I go to the gym, I've had these old retired guys. They're like, "What do you do? What do you do for a living? Are you a firefighter?" And I'm like, "No." And actually did think about that, by the way. I thought about doing the firefighting, but I didn't like that I'd be gone from my family overnight. That's the thing that kept me from that. But I really considered that. I was like, no, I own my own businesses, and that's what allowed. They're like, "Oh, okay." So to me, I was like, the flexibility that you get. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I probably need to build my own brand online. And the reason I started my podcast was because I wanted to connect with people, and I felt like, number one, I can help others. And number two, it'll keep me accountable to going after my goals. When I started my podcast, my goal was financial independence through real estate investing. So I'm like, okay, I'll put this out there. I'm going to bring on as many people as I can in this world and learn from them. So I get the benefit of learning from them. I can help them advertise what they're doing to others. And then I can connect with people listening to the podcast and know that like I'm making a difference in the world. And from a faith perspective, that's the number one thing to me, is like, I want to honor God with my life. I want to make a difference. And I don't just want to, like, to me, the downside of real estate is just there's a lot of sharks that are just stacking up money and just like so focused on the money that they'll literally do anything to anybody else to get more money. And it's just like kind of depressing. But, there's also some good folks in real estate that are trying to do the right thing, they have a purpose to their life. They're purpose driven. And so for me, the social media thing was a way to connect and encourage others. And like, I met you guys through social media because I was on Brandon's podcast. Well, I met Brandon through social media. So it's just a way to like connect with people. And
and I'll say something too real quick.
That's probably more valuable to me than the cash flow I have. Even though the cash flow is awesome, like the, connecting with people, because it's like, we're all going to die one day. You can't take your money with you. So it's just like, who did you impact? How did you impact people? Warren Buffett he said something, I'm going to paraphrase, but it was something along the lines of, you can know how successful your life was by when you die, if the number of people you wanted to have like you. And so it's like, I don't want everybody to like me, because I know it's impossible, but like I have some people I care about, and I want to live in a way that, nourishes that relationship, and communicates that I care about them. I want to help them out and stuff. And so it's like, that's the relationship part of it's really important to me. And I thought social media is probably a good way to do that. A lot of people do it just to raise money or whatever. But I mean, honestly, I've started kind of distancing myself from the folks that just want to raise money at all costs, because they'll want to come on my podcast or they'll want to have me on theirs. And it's they literally just want to raise money, and they don't really care anything about you or what you're trying to accomplish. And it's literally just like, how much money can I squeeze out of this? And to me, like, my values are not aligned with that. So that's kind of where I am on the social media. Is awesome. It's a double-edged sword. It's awesome, and also can be bad at times as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's so cool. And, just to say it to you, that was a huge reason why I wanted you on this podcast, because I felt like our values were so aligned.
Thank you. I have
a family, and me and Jesse are very aligned in those same things, where we don't, money's nice. We want money to survive and to do cool things, but it's really about, the number one thing is serving God. Number two thing is serving other people. And for me, that's my family first and foremost. And so I just think that's awesome. And we started the podcast for literally the exact same reason. We were like, hey, let's go out there and tell people we are trying to achieve financial independence through commercial real estate was kind of the angle. And that's what we're going for. So we're definitely encouraging people.
It gives you a platform to connect with people. So how did I connect with those guys? From just literally not stopping. Like, you just commit yourself to not stopping your podcast, to networking with as many people as you can, to helping as many people as you can. You will eventually connect with all those folks, so that I think you're doing the right thing. Just keep doing what you're doing, reach out to people, try to add value to them. It's just real estate investing world is kind of small. It's a small world once you kind of get into it. So treat people like you want to be treated, and don't stop what you're doing,
Absolutely.
What I've found from the podcast stuff, and why we wanted to do it too, in addition to all the things you said, was it's just so much easier to get connected with other people, especially in
Yes.
different markets, right? It's like,
Yes.
yeah, let me go to lunch and let's pick your brain, or
Right.
how about actually let's come on our podcast, and then that way that
Yeah.
you could post it, I could post it, and then the speed of social media is so cool too. Like,
Yes.
I talked to somebody last Saturday at a wedding I haven't talked to in 3 years, and he told me all the stuff that I have going on. Like, he just knew
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Whether people hate it or love it or whatever, it's effective. It really
Right.
is.
And the awesome thing about podcasting is that if somebody doesn't like it, they just don't listen. That's
Yeah.
cool. Like, no, I don't listen to every podcast out there because I don't like a lot of them, but the ones that I do like, I listen to a lot, and even there'll be seasons with your podcast where certain people, that's all they'll listen to for the next 2 years. And then they'll go on and they'll find something else. And that's fine too. It's like, it's just a tool in the tool belt, but it's a great way to connect with people, and it opens doors on, and the reason it opens doors is you're able to leverage your time. And I'm huge on that. Like, leveraging your time is one of the smartest things you can do, because I can do one podcast episode with you guys, and it's going to live on the media channels indefinitely. Right. And so somebody could find this 10 years from now and get benefit from it. And I spent 1 hour doing it. So if you look at it that way, like, if you have a video that gets 1 million views, you just gave 1 million hours to people, and you spent 1 hour. I mean, that's when you talk about doing ministry or like doing charity work, you go and spend an hour cutting somebody's grass or something. That's great. But think about spending an hour and helping 1 million people for an hour. It's like, it's a really great way to help people. So that's why I love the leverage that social media gives.
Yeah, that's really cool. I never thought of it like that.
So what's one way that you yourself, because I know you're a believer, obviously, incorporate your faith into your work, and then also, what's a way that some other people can do that? Just make an impact. We try to be a light with the people we work with, and
yeah, I mean, I think that is the lens through which I see everything, and so I think the saying "how you do anything is how you do everything" comes to mind, and like, far from perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes, but it's like, I aspire to treat people like I want to be treated, to have God's purpose in my heart for what I'm doing, and not pride, not greed, not be self-serving with what I'm doing. So it's like, I think it's important. Like, it's not, everybody doesn't need to quit their jobs and become ministers. It's like, everybody is a minister in their job. So if you're a real estate investor, be a real estate investor that's purpose driven, that's ethical, that treats people like they want to be treated. And if you're working in an accounting firm, like, do that in a way, treat people like they want to be treated. Like, if everybody did that, man, it'd be an insane place to live in the world. Like, you go through fast food, they'd treat you awesome. It would, like, you'd go get your appraisal done. It'd be a great encounter. Like, you would think about how that would be if everybody just did that in the role they're in. So I think we're all in positions of, like, ministry opportunities with what we're doing. And so I just try to view it that way. And I think it's just, we were talking about this last night in my small group that I'm in at my church, but a lot of it comes down to pride. It's like, you just gotta kind of swallow your pride. When a deal doesn't work out and you don't get the brokerage fee from it, somebody else gets it, or with a client that you worked with, you want to be angry about it, because you're like, I nourished that relationship. And then that money went to somebody else. But it's like, at the bottom, at the root of it, it's like, I feel like I deserve it. And it's like, well, what do you really deserve? Like, if you're a believer, you've been forgiven of all this junk you did by Jesus and what he did. It's like, we didn't deserve that. We got that gift. So we got to apply that to other things in our life. So yeah, it's been a journey for me. Like, definitely went through time period in my life where I wasn't close to God and was making a lot of foolish mistakes and all that. And it's just like, to me, real estate has been a blessing for me, because it's given me the freedom and the flexibility to really focus on spiritual growth, focus on getting healthier. Like, I go to the gym every day, try to spend time with God in prayer, and like, and active in my church and a small group and all that. So I think that's like a huge benefit to this, is just like the ability to have some time freedom to focus on things that'll make you healthy in your, healthy in your spirit and your actual, like, physical health.
Absolutely.
That's
I agree with
awesome.
all that. And at the end of the day too, if you don't have your spiritual health and, your family
Yeah.
and your physical health, is like the money doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah. I mean, if you're sitting at home depressed and, I've dealt with depression, so it's not something anybody's above. But if you're sitting home depressed and like don't know why you're on this earth, like and you're like you're in this job that's sucking the soul out of you, like try to find something else. Try to do something else. Like to me, it's better to work at McDonald's and not feel that way than it would be to work at a job where you're making $200K and it's just like you feel like your life is ruined. Like it's not worth it. So like sell some cars and like downgrade your house or whatever you got to do to get to a place of spiritual health, because you'd rather, I mean, wouldn't you rather own nothing and feel good about your life than own a bunch of stuff and feel terrible about your life? It's like, it sounds obvious, but that's like the American way of doing things. It's like, we just like bog ourselves down with all this stuff we don't really need. And then we feel depressed about how we're spending our time. It's like, well, I signed up for that car payment, so now I got to go to this job I don't like to pay for the thing that I now don't know if I want. And it's like, man, maybe we should just back it down on all the purchases and like chill out a little bit and like enjoy our life,
Yeah, that's where the simplicity comes back in.
Yeah, it's something me and Jesse have been discussing a lot. I feel like something God's been showing me.
Yeah,
I don't by any means have a massive portfolio or anything, but I have like, let's see, 3 duplexes, now 1 single family, and then a commercial deal and another commercial deal we're about to buy. So it's like, even with just that, it's making me reevaluate like, okay, all this stuff is great and it's cool and it's what I want to do. But at the same time, it takes a lot of time and it's kind of stressful too. I mean, it's very stressful. So it's like, instead of going after having a massive portfolio where, you might make a ton of cash flow, it's like, I don't know if I want all that, because then I'm not going to be able to spend time with God. Then I'm not going to be able to spend time with my family.
Right.
And be worried about all these.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's
no, you're fine. That's pretty much all I was saying. It's just like, I'd rather have, a smaller portfolio that allows me the flexibility, because that is really what's most important.
I think you got to ask yourself if what you're deciding to do is bringing you closer to God or not. If you're like, if you can't say yes, it will, then I would think long and hard about it, because I mean, that's how I look at things with my faith. So like, I guess if you don't believe in God, then you're like, well, it's all meaningless anyway. Right. So it's a different perspective, but in my faith, like honoring God, my purpose that God gave me is the number one thing for me. So if I'm looking at like scaling my portfolio, or I'm looking at moving my family somewhere, or I'm looking at taking on a different job or whatever, it's like, okay, do I know that this is going to bring me closer to God or not negatively affect my faith? And if I can't say yes, probably it's probably a good sign that maybe you should think long and hard about it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good challenge.
Well, I agree with all that. Yeah, that's cool. You're inspiring for sure.
Thanks,
and I
man.
appreciate everything you said. So, Jesse, before we wrap this up, do you have any last questions for him?
I think like where we are, where me and Graham are right now, like trying to do a few different things and looking at potentially, like, I'm not saying we're going to go hire somebody tomorrow, but we're looking at in our rocks and our EOS traction, like eventually hiring a team inside, and we're bouncing focus. Like, where do you go as like a good like metric, like mentors and stuff like that? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, what's the balance of simplicity versus doing a couple different things?
I mean, I'm 43 years old, so when I started in 2017 on really getting serious about real estate. So that was 7 years ago. So I was in my mid 30s. Like, there's a season for just working like a madman and just going 3 sheets to the wind on it, and you'll get a lot of traction and a lot of progress. And sometimes it takes an insane amount of work just to get any momentum. I would just say, like, you guys are believers. I would say, pray about it. And if you're like testing what you're thinking you're wanting to do, and you're praying about it, and you're like not getting any answers of like, don't do that, then I would just say, try to figure out what's going to move the needle for you the most and do that, and so, because like, everything's opportunity cost. So if you decide to do a podcast for an hour, like that's an hour you can't spend in the gym. That's an hour you're not spending with your family. It's an hour you're not spending building your portfolio. So it's just like weighing everything out and figuring out, okay, what is going to be opportunity cost wise? What's the best way I can spend my time each day to get to this goal that I want? and do those things, and then try to limit the other stuff and not dilute yourself too much. Because if you try to do too many different things, you're not going to get a lot of progress in any one of them. So
yeah, that's definitely a good point. I mean, we've got Airbnb investing, commercial real estate investing, brokerage, podcast, personal brand. I have my glove business that takes up time too. I mean, it's a lot. And, you know, you hear a lot, you can't serve two masters. Well, there's like 7. So,
right. Well, and also like 80-20 rule, figure out what's causing 80% of the problems. And it's probably coming from like 20% of what you're doing. And, you know, and it can also be reversed. Like where's 80% of your profit coming from? Where's 80% of your future net worth coming from? Do more of that, and then cut out the 3 things that are contributing to the 20% of your net worth, because those are probably dragging you down, and like simplify things. So it's like the second in my own appraisal business that I identified my best clients, my 80%, where 80% of my income was coming from, and they caused 20% of the problems. And then I identified my clients that was giving me 20% of my income and they were 80% of my problems. I got rid of that 20%. Second I did that, my appraisal business got a lot more profitable and a lot more fun to work in. You know, so it's like just applying that to your income streams as well. And I do think having diverse income streams is really good. Like I've got appraisal, I've got brokerage, and I've got my investment properties. And like right now, appraisal is doing well. Brokerage is really slow. And the income properties are doing fine. 2 years ago, brokerage was huge and appraisal was okay, you know, and the income properties were doing good. So I'm thankful for the appraisal because the brokerage is slow right now. So I do think having diverse income streams is smart.
Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome.
We're trying to do that.
Yeah. Trying.
Sounds like y'all are doing some good stuff. Keep doing it.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Well, we'll tag Josiah's social media in the description. We thank you so much for coming on here. You dropped a lot of value. I mean, I learned a ton, so I'm really thankful, and it was great connecting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thanks guys for having me. And I'm in the process of starting kind of a new YouTube channel. I'm going to put it under my name, which is Josiah Smelser. But yeah, connect with me on Instagram. It's at Josiah Smelser. I'll put updates about it there, but it's going to be like a adventure travel channel. And I'm going to try to have some ministry stuff I do there as well. But yeah, appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so
much.
Thanks
so much.